This is the second video for It Had to Be You. As I promised, I will show you the extra things I did in my performance at the beginning of the first video. Okay, let's start. I started to play like this. Originally, there is no chord in this pickup measure. However, I harmonized with G7 because the next chord is C major 7. Remember the circle of fifths? G7 resolves to C chord. G7, the guide tone of G7, which is called tritone, resolves to C. Tension, resolution. That's why it works. I explained in my basic jazz theory video, so please watch and review. By the way, this melody A is not a part of G7 chord. This is a non-chord tone. As I showed how to harmonize the melody in my previous video, when you harmonize a non-chord tone, put melody on top, otherwise no one can hear the melody, and chord tones below like this. So I moved this G here in order to set all the notes within one octave. Then omit the first chord tone below the melody. This is how you harmonize non-chord tones. So it becomes like this. I also played this F with my left hand and took away from the right hand to avoid doubling. And I did one more thing. I replaced this D, which is the fifth of the chord, fifth of G7, with E flat, which is the tension called flat 13th. I will cover this topic called tension substitution in the next lesson. However, I will explain briefly about tensions here. Chords are basically a scale stacked every other note, right? For example, C major scale, and C major 7 is first, third, fifth, and seventh of the scale. Remember, this 7th degree of major scale is called major 7th, not 7th. 7th is half step below major 7. Many people get confused, so I wanted to make sure. And the skipped notes D, F, and A can be stacked over the basic chords as an extension. They are called tensions. Since they are considered as an extension of the basic 7th chord, we call it 9th, 11th, and 13th. And these tensions can be altered, such as flat 9 or sharp 9 or sharp 11 or flat 13. Those colorful altered tensions can be often used on dominant 7th chord, but not for all dominant 7th chord. I will explain when you cannot use, but for now, you can use flat 13 for this G7. Okay, let's go to the next. So here, I just simply harmonized melody B with C major 7 like we did in part 1, but I replaced root with ninth. This is another tension substitution that I will cover in the next lesson. And I just repeat it octave higher, that's all. So here, this harmony here is G7. So I play chord tones G and B, and I play flat 13, this altered tension again. And then, okay. And then landed C6 chord. So part of C6 chord. Remember I said in previous video, C major 7, that's written in the lead sheet, but C major 7 can be converted to C6 chord. So I converted C to C6 and I just used part of the C6 chord, E and G and A. Okay, next. So here I played B7, B flat 7, and A7. So the A7 is the target. So when I add those chords before A7, I think backwards. So target A means think A as a 1. So think about A major scale and diatonic chords. Remember, the 5th degree of diatonic chords is always dominant 7th. So, which is E7. And this dominant 7th guide tones 3rd and 7th, which is called tritone, because 3 whole steps. So this tritone resolves to half step inward. Remember, that's the tension resolution. So E7 resolve to A. So you can add E7 with altered tensions here to approach A7 like this. The notes are the 3rd of E7, 7th, it's tritone, and melody is a flat 13, because this is a 13. So flat 13 and flat 9 instead of root. This is called altered dominant approach, one of approach chords you can use to enhance the chord progression. However, I did one more step. As I explained, as I introduced a little bit in my basic jazz theory video with Over the Rainbow, I used substitute dominant here. So instead of E7, I used B flat 7. Why? Because E7 tritone, 3rd and 7th, and B flat 7, 3rd and 7th, is the same. It's just a different position. So I used B flat 7 to go to A. And same thing. Now I target B flat 7. Okay, B flat chord. And then think about what's the dominant 7th that resolves to B flat. So think about B flat major scale. Okay. instead of F7, I used B7 because F7 tritone and B7 tritone is same. So this is a substitute dominant. Then that resolves to B flat, and this is also substitute dominant that resolves to A. And then the notes I used is B7, root and seventh, and this is the third of the chord, and this is the 13th. That's the 13th tension. Third, 13, and melody. So here B flat 7, root 7th, and then again this is a third, and this is a 13 again, and then melody. Like this. And then when you use substitute dominant, those two, this is the situation you cannot use even it's dominant 7th chord. You cannot use flat 13 or flat 9 altered tensions. So remember, for substitute dominant, stay with natural 9th and natural 13th. Okay, next. Here, what I did is simply from A7 to half step up, B flat 7, then came back to A7. So it's a shifting effect. Of course, you can call this is a substitute dominant to resolve to A7. So this is root and 7th and third of the chord, and then same B flat 7, root 7th and third of the chord. Okay. So what I play here, this line came from D7 because the chord harmony here is D7. Okay, those, remember the skip note are the tensions. So B is a 6th degree, which is as a tension we call 13th. 13 and then flat 13 and resolves to 5th of the chord, A. And then same thing. So E is 2nd degree, which is as a tension we call 9th. 9, flat 9, and come to the root. So here, same thing. What I did for A7, G7 to shift up to A flat 7, then came back to G7. So the notes are root and 7th, and this is a third of the chord, and then E, that is 13th of G7, and then A flat 7, root 7th, and then this is the 9th, and this is the 5th of the chord. And then came back to here. So this is what I did is a bit advanced technique, which is called Diminished Approach. First of all, the chords here is G7 and A flat 7, 2 beats each, but I changed to D minor 7. Why? Because it goes to G7. Remember 251? So by playing D minor 7 in this measure, it becomes D minor 7, G7, and go to C major 7. 2, 5, 1 of key of C. Okay, now I tell you what I did based on D minor 7 in this measure. To enhance a chord progression, I added diminished approach chord. Diminished approach chords are diminished chords based on a root half step below the target chord root. Here the target chord is D minor 7. So the diminished chord based on the half step below D is C sharp diminished. C sharp, E, G, B flat. C sharp diminished 7. So it becomes like this. This is diminished approach. And you don't need to use the root position. You can use first inversion of C sharp diminished here, and first inversion of D minor 7, or second inversion of C sharp diminished, and second inversion of D minor 7, or third inversions like this. So you can practice back and forth like this. And what I used here is second inversions. Second inversions and third inversions also. And I used the drop 2 voicings here. Drop 2 voicings is the one I introduced in the previous video when I play when I wish upon a star. So simply the second from the top, so top note is E here, so second from the top, bring octave down, that's it. Okay, do the same thing, second from the top down, and then second from the top down. So that's what I did. And then I didn't go to the G7 directly, as you see. I put A flat 7. So here the target chord is G7. So think backwards again. So think G as 1 and think about what dominant 7th resolves to G, which is D7. Okay, G major scale, diatonic chords, the 5th degree of diatonic chords, that's the D7. Dominant 7th always have this particular interval, tritone, creates tense, and wants to resolve this way, half step inward, so this which is G. So you can put D7 here because that resolves to G, so it's appropriate, but I used A flat 7. Why? Because D7 tritone and A flat 7 tritone are the same. Okay, then I used, so A flat 7 here is a substitute dominant. So when you use substitute dominant, root motion becomes half step down. When you use primary dominant, which belongs to the key of G, fifth down. That's the circle of fifths. Okay, so here I use A flat 7, substitute dominant, and resolves to G. So the notes are root 7th and 3rd of the chord, and B flat is the 9th. It's a second degree. As a tension we call 9th. So, and then G7, again root 7 and 3rd of the chord, and which is 9th. Okay. You got some idea how to enhance the melody. If you didn't understand everything, don't worry. If you listen to it and use it often, it will become your second nature. I will demonstrate and apply the same thing again and again through different tunes, and you will get it over time. Thank you for watching. See you in the next lesson.